What are you? Has anyone ever asked you that before? Yes? No? What are you is the one question that instantly makes me smile, no matter who says it. What are you? What are you? What are you? I feel like I could make a hit song out of those 3 words. Do you think it's overkill that I keep saying it? Are you getting tired of hearing me say it? To be honest, I was tired of hearing it too. I have been asked this question so many times it is hard to keep track. Sometimes I was calm, sometimes I got angry, sometimes I cried, and sometimes I was just downright confused. I wanted to understand how we identify ourselves. So I took it upon myself to investigate this very question. I wanted to understand when a stranger comes up and asks me, "What are you?" "No, I know that, but what are you really?" They repeated it as if I didn't understand. Like, was my answer not satisfactory for you? How do we choose to identify ourselves, or don't we choose? This person that makes up the human body, I can see what others are telling me. I hear what others are telling me, but what is my heart telling me? To be truthful, I didn't know what I was getting myself into for the longest time, but I allowed myself to be vulnerable and true to my inner core. At least that's what I keep telling myself. So I've been rolling with that idea for a long time now. My insides twisting and turning, trying to figure this all out. So first, I think it's important to tell you, my mother is of German and Belgian heritage. She is this mishmash of European heritage and grew up being born and raised in this lovely state we call Ohio. She had a typical childhood and adulthood growing up. Her distant family lineage has descent from these 2 cultures, German and Belgian origin. But all she has ever known is who she is told she is, that her relatives are this and her relatives are that. Kind of like those family trees you may have done in school where you may put this or that because that's what you're told. Therefore, with her being of this heritage, that makes me this as well. My father, on the other hand, is of East Indian heritage. He was born in India and moved to Pakistan when he was a young boy. Now, let me tell you something. I don't know if he had a typical childhood or adulthood growing up. He never really talked about it. I tried to ask, but something was always yearning for me, wanting to know more. I remember the first time I really understood an itsy little bit part of my life was for an assignment in my undergraduate degree at 20 years old. 20 years of my life had gone by where I didn't really know anything. I had so many questions in me that were unanswered. When I tried to breach the subject again, it just didn't happen for one reason or another. Needless to say, I was left really confused. Keeping all of this in mind, of my mother and my father, I am a person of European, so German and Belgian heritage, and East Indian. What does that even mean? Where does that leave me? I am of 2 cultures. I am East Indian and I am European. Do I pick just one and stick with it? Do I have to pick just one? Do I have to pick either of them? What am I asked myself. It has been in my mind for the past few years due to specific and overall experiences I have faced while living here in the United States and traveling abroad to various countries. Positive and negative encounters happened to me, but I didn't let it rule me just then. It was around this very time last year that I truly gave any thought to the unknown, the what am I? I was at a professional art therapy and counseling conference, and we were sitting around a table, getting ready for lunch. Not everyone had arrived yet. One lady was sitting near my colleagues and I, and she striked up some small talk. So, being the person I love to talk, so I was really excited. And she appeared to be of East Indian heritage. I didn't confirm it, but she went on to talking. She inquired about my background, my heritage, my nationality. And I honestly couldn't tell you what her initial question or 2 to me was, because I was so focused on what came next. What do your parents think of the profession that you're going into? You know, your family, your extended family. You know, hinting at because of the background I just told her that I had. What was the first thing that came to my mind? My friend gave the lady a, you shouldn't have asked that expression, We've all probably faced that look. I discussed with her how I didn't really know my family on my father's side. The lady went on to discuss how her history of deciding to go into this field, while her parents' reactions initially, were full of questions, eventually were very supportive. She briefly discussed with me the stereotype that exists with East Indians and them generally going into the medical or engineering field, which is why she was talking to me and it had these questions for me. And that was all great and fine, but I couldn't focus on that. I was still focused on why she asked me that question the way she did. Didn't I just tell her I was not just East Indian heritage, but European as well? Why does it seem like I'm having to pick one culture over the other right now? I'm not upset for my experience with this complete stranger. In fact, I'm very thankful for the push she enabled me to see. I started to think of that uncertainty, that unknown within me. How do I come to view myself? How do I describe myself to others when they ask or when I tell? I decided I was going to identify myself as American/Indian. Note the slash sign. I decided to identify myself as this because I was of two cultures, so I thought, well, this sounds good. And I went with that. But naturally it got confusing because people thought I was of Native American heritage. So I decided to do some seek out answers to my own questions. I interviewed other second-generational Asian Indian Americans to better understand their personal lived experiences and how it affected their identity development, using just talking and an art experience. I used my personal lived experiences with them to cultivated my own interest in finding out what lived experiences others like me had. My participants shared personal experiences of how his or her life has been impacted by being a second-generational East Asian Indian American. If she had a strong connection to one culture over the other, the values that they lived, the livelihoods, and all of those experiences really trying to capture. And I wanted to know. I yearned for more information. While each of my participants' stories were similar, they were all dissimilar. Not one was the same. Surprise, right? Each one of my participants had a different story to share and how he or she came to view their identity and how they came to view their life and their purpose. I felt connected to the research that I did because I started to think of my own personal identity development. Because of those experiences I've dealt with in my life of what are you? And all of those questions that came with it. Like, are you this? Are you that? No. I mean this. What am I? I am me. If I had to check a box in an application, probably check the other box, I would now identify as European and East Indian. Otherwise, if that's not asked, I plan to identify myself the way I want to. Plan to take each day as it comes, allowing the unknown parts of myself to unravel, little by little. Identity is not something that my participants had an aha moment for. It appeared to be a process of a constant throughout their life that they just continued to go on. Individuals have rich experiences that shape the path for the rest of his or her life. Individuals, we all have varying backgrounds of who we are, the biological determinants of who we are and how we came here. But it's about what you believe and the development, the experiences that you have that can come to your conclusion of how you want to identify. And I didn't know that at first. Identity development is a process that may be difficult to go through, but ultimately has the potential to be very rewarding. Positive and negative experiences affect individuals in ways that are not always talked about or understood until you take the time to explore. We are a diverse world. We are made up of varying identities, which make our interactions that much more interesting and inspiring. We define our own lives. No one can tell us who we are and what we are. We're beautiful, we're unique, and most importantly, we're us. You're you. Never lose sight of your unknown. I challenge you to reflect and chew on the question of what am I? to better understand your own identity. Then, when you're ready, go exploring. I promise you, taking on the task of looking at what you believe to be true of yourself will provide for a different, sometimes uncomfortable, yet enriching experience to be a part of, as it did me. So I extend my hand to you and invite you to take a look. Thank you, and happy exploring.